Tonight, President Trump is expected to announce his pick to replace retiring Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy. According to NBC News, Trump has narrowed his list of contenders to 4 candidates: Brett Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, Raymond Ketledge, and Thomas Hardiman. A source with knowledge of the selection process tells NBC that Trump is focusing on Kavanaugh and Hardiman. All right, we will continue to ask questions about this. Joining us now, Professor of Law at George Washington University Law School, Jeffrey Rosen. He's also President and CEO of the National Constitution Center and a contributing editor of The Atlantic. Good to have you on board this morning.
Great to have you on board. So do you, does your information line up with NBC's information that it's these 4 and it's been narrowed down to Kavanaugh and Hardiman?
Well, I'm reading the same paper as you are, but it's important to stress, first of all, the huge significance of today. This is the 150th anniversary of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution, which guaranteed equality and liberty after the Civil War, and the appointment President Trump makes today could determine the shape of the 14th Amendment for the next 50 years. So this is going to be the most important decision of his presidency, and it's really important to stress similarities and differences between Kavanaugh and Hardiman. We know that Kavanaugh is seen as an insider. He worked for the Starr investigation. He's a very respected conservative judge who favors executive power. But Trump seems to fear that he might resurrect a lot of the impeachment concerns that would focus the nomination hearings on similarities and differences between the Clinton impeachment and the possibility of Trump's own impeachment. Hardiman has less of a record. Trump is impressed by the fact that he drove a cab when he was at Georgetown Law School. His decisions about social conservative matters like contraception and abortion are in a pro-conservative direction, but he may not be as dramatic an originalist as the other candidates. But the central question here is, what is the approach to precedent of all these candidates? Will they uphold decisions that they might disagree with, like Roe v. Wade, or are they determined to overturn them as inconsistent with original understanding? So although all 4 of these candidates are conservative, there are really important differences among them, and it is very important for citizens to read their records and try to understand what kind of judicial conservative each of them might be.
And so Kristen, Barrett seems to be the grand slam, as some people have said, for social conservatives. At the same time, we've spoken with senators who say that is the nomination that will not get through the Senate. Just will not get through the Senate. And then you have Hardiman and the others. It's interesting, if this pick is seen as a pick that will ultimately lead to the ending of Roe v. Wade, that's certainly what social conservatives have been after since 1973. At the same time, I saw a poll yesterday that showed 60% of Americans don't want that to happen. Interesting, very interesting here. Only 31% do. Very interesting how this sort of plays into Trump's focus on 1/3 of America.
Sure. So I think I would be surprised if any of these 4 in a confirmation hearing were to come out and say, yes, it is my goal to overturn Roe versus Wade. Yes, if appointed to this position, I would do so. I suspect that any of those 4 would say, I defer to precedent. I think that does not mean that all past precedents are right. I mean, you can look at cases, take something like Citizens United, which is a case where public opinion shows that about 90% of America does not like the decision that was made in Citizens United. But if you are going to make adherence to precedent the thing you are looking for, then does that mean that a judge who says, I would be open to overturning Citizens United is disqualified? So I think, there's so much focus on Roe versus Wade, but there are a lot of cases that have been decided where if you have a judge take a position that is potentially unpopular, what you'll have is a lot of red state Democrats. So bear in mind the makeup of the Senate right now, there are a lot of Democrats in states Trump won. If they can find any plausible excuse to say, look, I didn't want to obstruct the president. I wanted to confirm his person, but here's this one thing that gives me an out. That'll make it much more challenging for Mitch McConnell to get it through. So I think the reason why you would want to pick someone who maybe doesn't have as much of a paper trail or doesn't have the potential for doing something in a hearing that could get them in trouble is precisely that. You want to maximize pressure on those red state Democrats. Don't give them an excuse to say, well, here's why I'm out.
And no, for those watching watching, it's important to understand all conservatives are not created equal. You have Justice Thomas, who is more in the Barrett line of thinking, which is every day is a new day, a new opportunity to overturn existing precedent that I find offensive and not aligned with my view of the Constitution. And then you have Hardiman, who there are suggestions at least he may be more like John Roberts, who balances precedent a bit more.
And Kavanaugh has a record of threading the needle,
right,
as it were. That can frustrate conservatives, as you said, can frustrate and can make conservatives happy at times. But that would actually make him harder to confirm because he has such a paper trail, which leads me to my question for you, Jeffrey, is what is the president's best confirmation strategy here? Is it to pick somebody who's unoffensive and sail through the Senate and get this out of the way? Or do you think it's possibly better for the Republican position to pick somebody who engages conservatives, who enlivens the base ahead of a probably difficult election year, even though this probably is going to be out of the way by September, October?
It's a great question. Mitch McConnell has told the president that he thinks that Kethridge and Hardiman would be the easiest confirmation picks because Kavanaugh and Barrett would inflame the country. On the other hand, on the assumption that they're going to get through anyone that they nominate in any event, you might really want to motivate the base. But the really interesting thing is, overturning Roe, many people understand, may be the worst thing that could happen to the Republican Party because there are a lot of pro-choice women and men who are Republicans who don't want Roe to be overturned. And for that reason, Trump, like President Bush 41, might prefer to choose a nominee who actually doesn't overturn Roe. Bush 41 famously told Clarence Thomas, you don't have to overturn Roe. And Trump, weighing all these calculations, wants to assure his base that the person is conservative, but might prefer someone who can get through easily through the Senate and might preserve the core of Roe. So for those reasons, a political sensible calculation might indeed mean Hardiman or Kethridge.
You know, what's so interesting, Mika, is for a president who uses opening the NFL season to pick a fight with the NFL and NFL players, and who actually tells people close to him that that's really good for his political brand.
Yeah.
Why not Barrett? Why not pick the fight? And if she does end up getting defeated, then, well, all the more.
That's what I think.
All the more ammunition
in terms of how he thinks.
The fall.
That's my gut. Jeffrey Rosen, thank you very much. Kristen Soltis Anderson and John Meacham, thank you both as well. And Andrea Mitchell will be watching Andrea Mitchell Reports at noon Eastern on MSNBC, and hope to have you back with us throughout the week as the president heads overseas. Thank you so much.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.